I'm Sophia Sanchez, and this is Breaking News, where there's always breaking news. Well, let's get down to business. In today's top story, we will look back at the different punishments during ancient Egypt and medieval times. Punishment, yes, punishment. Let's start with ancient Egypt. Everyone except the slaves were considered equal in the eyes of the law, no matter their position or wealth. But women usually suffered more severe punishment than men for the same crime. We all know that is not right, and this, in comparison to modern times, that would not happen. For example, some examples of common punishment were 100 to 200 hits with a stick, 1 to 5 open cuts, and mutilation of the nose and ears, but also forced labor. Forced labor means that even the family members of the criminal would be punished by being put to work from 10 to 20 years. Again, that's not fair in today's world, and it would not happen here in Canada. Depending on how serious the crime was the punishment. For example, punishment for minor crimes like personal attacks could end up being sold in a slave or sent to one of the country's construction projects or mines. Other types of punishments were cutting off a hand, tongue, nose, and ears. Torture was used to get people to confess to a crime. The most common torture used was patestino. This is a beating to the bottom of the foot with a stick. The death penalty was rare in ancient Egypt. It only happened for the murder of the king and the tomb robbery. The punishment was being burned alive, drowning, and decapitation. The worst possible crime was grave robbing. Grave robbers ripped the fabric around the mummy, looking for treasure buried in the wrappings. The reason it was considered the worst crime is because ancient Egypt believed in the afterlife. But if something happened to your tomb, or if your preserved body was damaged in any way, your afterlife was over. Now, some interesting facts. It was against the law to harm a cat. If you killed a cat, your punishment could be death. The reason is that they believed the cats had magical powers and they guarded their children and their homes. Wow, these punishments are horrible and terrifying. And now a look at punishments in medieval times. Some similar facts are, just as they did in ancient Egypt, torture was also used to get someone to confess. People's hands were cut off for stealing. They were beaten, drowned, and burned alive, and people were tortured in public. This was to stop anyone else from committing a crime. One thing is for sure, there was a lot of torture during medieval times, but some differences to ancient Egypt are everyone was not equal when it came to the law. The rich did not get the same punishment, and the death penalty was very popular in medieval times, but it was a slow death because of the torture they suffered. For example, the chair of torture had 500 to 1,500 spikes all over, which cut their body until they died. The maiden was a box with very big spikes, and when it was closed, the spikes could cut off the flesh. Death would take many hours and even days. Foot roasting was used to punish someone for a minor crime. The rack was a machine that stretched the criminal by being tied around the wrist and feet until the shoulders were dislocated and the stomach ripped. This was all very harsh and scary punishments. If we compare these to modern day punishments, they are horrific, and we are lucky to not live those times. Well, thanks for watching. Hope you found this interesting. Goodbye.